My name is Hannah, and I was 31 years old when I finally realized the man I was supposed to marry didn't actually respect me. The embarrassing part is that everyone else seemed to know it before I did. For almost 4 years, I was engaged to Brandon. If you had asked me back then, I would have told you I was happy. Maybe not fairy tale happy, but stable happy. The kind of happy adults convince themselves is enough. I worked as a school counselor at a public middle school. I loved helping kids. I loved seeing shy students come out of their shells and troubled students find confidence. The pay wasn't amazing, but I felt proud of what I did. Brandon never understood that. He worked in corporate sales and made nearly 3 times my salary. Most of his friends were executives, business owners, or people who spent more money on a watch than I spent on rent. At first, I thought our differences didn't matter. I was wrong. The warning signs had always been there. I just kept finding excuses for them. Whenever Brandon and I attended parties with his friends, I felt like I was being quietly evaluated. The women wore expensive designer dresses. Their handbags probably cost more than my SUV. They talked about private clubs, luxury vacations, investment properties, and cosmetic procedures. I talked about helping a 7th grader overcome anxiety. Nobody cared. One night, during a dinner party, someone asked me what I did for work. When I told them I was a school counselor, there was a brief silence. Then one of Brandon's friends laughed. A counselor? That's cute. Cute. Not important. Not impressive. Cute. The table laughed politely. I laughed too because I didn't know what else to do. On the drive home, I told Brandon it bothered me. He sighed dramatically. Hannah, not everything is an insult. It felt like one. You're reading too much into it. That became his favorite phrase. You're reading too much into it. You're too sensitive. You're imagining things. After hearing it enough times, I started believing him. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I was insecure. Maybe I was creating problems where none existed. But the comments kept happening. At another gathering, one of his friends asked when I planned on getting a real career. Everyone laughed, including Brandon. I smiled while my face burned. When we got into the car later, he claimed it was just a joke. Everything was always a joke. The jokes became worse after we got engaged one evening. We were celebrating a promotion one of his friends had received. Everyone had been drinking. A woman sitting across from me looked at Brandon and smiled. You know, if we're being honest, you could have dated a model if you wanted. Several people laughed. I forced a smile. Then I looked at Brandon. I expected him to shut it down, to tell them they were being rude, to say he loved me. Instead, he grinned. I know. More laughter erupted around the table. I remember staring at my wine glass because I suddenly couldn't look at anyone. The conversation moved on. Nobody noticed how quiet I'd become. Later, when I confronted him, he rolled his eyes. It was harmless. It didn't feel harmless. You take everything personally. I should have walked away then. Looking back, I know that. But when you've spent years loving someone, you become surprisingly skilled at ignoring your own pain. I convinced myself that marriage would change things. That once we became husband and wife, we'd be a team. That he would finally stop trying to impress people who clearly enjoyed putting others down. The wedding was only a week away when everything finally collapsed. It happened completely by accident. I came home early from work one afternoon. Brandon was in his office upstairs. His door was partially open. I heard voices and realized he was on a video call with several of his friends. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop at first. Then I heard my name, and I stopped walking. One of the men laughed. "Seriously, man, why did you even pick Hannah?" The entire call exploded with laughter. My stomach tightened. I waited. I waited for Brandon to defend me. I waited for him to tell them to shut up. I waited for him to say something that would prove I hadn't wasted 4 years of my life. Instead, he smirked. Honestly, more laughter. Then he leaned back in his chair. Sometimes I wonder the same thing. The room erupted. My heart felt like it stopped beating. But he wasn't finished. "She's nice, she's dependable, she takes care of me. But compared to your wives," he shrugged, "she's kind of average." Average. Not beautiful, not amazing, not the love of his life. Just average. The safe option, the reliable option, the woman he settled for. Everyone laughed again. And for the first time in years, I didn't cry, I didn't feel angry, I didn't even feel sad. Something inside me simply went silent, because in that moment, every insult suddenly made sense. Every joke, every dismissal, every time he failed to defend me. He wasn't protecting me because he agreed with them. And as I stood there listening to the man I was supposed to marry reduce me to a convenient choice, I realized something terrifying. The wedding was 7 days away. And I wasn't thinking about how much he had hurt me. I was thinking about whether I could still escape. The next 24 hours were the calmest of my life. Not because I was okay, not because I wasn't devastated, but because, for the first time in years, I wasn't arguing with myself anymore. The moment I heard Brandon call me average, something inside me broke permanently. All the confusion disappeared, all the excuses vanished. There was nothing left to analyze. The man I loved had told the truth when he thought I wasn't listening, and that truth changed everything. Brandon left the next morning for a friend's bachelor party. He kissed my forehead before leaving. The same way he always did. The same way he had the day before. The same way he had after every insult, every dismissal, every moment he made me feel small. "Love you," he said. I almost laughed. Instead, I smiled and told him to have fun. The second the front door closed, I sat alone in our apartment for hours, thinking, remembering the corporate events he attended without me, because I wouldn't enjoy them. The dinners where his friends mocked my career, the way he introduced me as my girlfriend, even after we got engaged, the way he never posted photos of us online, the way he always seemed embarrassed whenever successful people were around. One memory after another surfaced, each one worse than the last. And the more I remembered, the easier my decision became. At first I read them, then I stopped. Because after a while I noticed something he probably didn't realize he was revealing. Every apology contained two losses: the loss of me, and the loss of the person he believed himself to be. He wasn't only mourning our relationship, he was mourning the collapse of his image. The successful man, the admired man, the man who always controlled the room, that version of Brandon had been exposed, and he didn't know how to live without it. Months passed. Eventually I heard through mutual friends that he had changed. People said therapy was helping. People said he seemed humbled. People said he wasn't the same person anymore. Maybe they were right. Maybe they weren't. It no longer mattered. Then came Lauren's wedding, a mutual friend. Someone close enough that neither of us could reasonably avoid attending. The moment I saw Brandon across the reception hall, I felt surprisingly calm. No anger, no heartbreak, nothing, just distance. He noticed me too. Several times I caught him looking in my direction. Hours later, while guests were dancing, he approached. "Can we talk?" I nodded. We stepped outside onto a quiet balcony overlooking the city. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he took a breath. "I've changed." I said nothing. "I know I hurt you." Silence. "I know I don't deserve another chance." Still silence. "But if there's even the slightest possibility." He stopped, waiting, hoping. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I asked one question. "Do you remember what your friend asked you that night?" The color drained from his face. "Yeah, good." He waited, confused. I smiled. For being honest. "What?" "If I hadn't heard that conversation, I probably would have married you." His expression collapsed, not from anger, from understanding. Because for the first time he realized the recording hadn't ruined his life, it had saved mine. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. There was nothing left to argue, nothing left to explain, nothing left to fix. I nodded politely, turned around, and walked back into the reception, leaving him alone on the balcony, exactly where our story belonged, in the past. 8 months later, my life looked completely different. Not perfect, not magical, not transformed overnight by some movie-style ending. Just healthier, calmer, mine. I accepted a promotion at work that I probably would have turned down before. For years, I had made decisions based on what worked best for Brandon's schedule, Brandon's goals, Brandon's image. Now I only had to think about myself. That realization felt strangely uncomfortable at first. Then it became liberating. A few months after the breakup, I moved to a different city. Nothing dramatic, just far enough away to feel like a fresh start. I rented a small apartment near a park and spent weekends exploring neighborhoods, bookstores, coffee shops, and places I would never have visited before. For the first time in years, I traveled without worrying whether someone else approved of my choices. I stopped apologizing for my career. Stopped apologizing for my salary. Stopped apologizing for my old SUV. Stopped apologizing for being myself. The more distance I gained from my old life, the more clearly I could see it. I hadn't just lost a fiancé. I had escaped a future where I would have spent decades trying to earn respect from someone who should have given it freely. Then I met Owen. There was no dramatic first encounter, no instant fireworks, no romantic movie moment. We met through mutual friends at a weekend barbecue. He was easy to talk to, quietly funny, comfortable in his own skin. He didn't spend the entire conversation talking about himself. He actually listened. That alone felt unusual. Over the next few months, we started spending more time together. One evening, while we were having dinner at a small restaurant downtown, I finally told him everything. The engagement, the recording, the wedding cancellation, the public fallout, all of it. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and shook his head. His friends couldn't understand why he chose you. I laughed. Apparently not. He looked genuinely confused, not performative, not flattering, actually confused. That's weird. I smiled. Why? He shrugged, because any decent guy would have figured that out in 5 minutes. Such a simple sentence. Nothing poetic, nothing dramatic. Yet somehow it reached a place inside me that years of apologies never could. For a moment I couldn't speak, because I realized something. The right person doesn't make you fight for basic respect. The right person starts there. Several weeks later, I received one final message from Brandon. He said he was passing through town. He asked for 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes to talk. To get closure, to explain a few things, to apologize one last time. I stared at the message for a long time. Months earlier, I would have answered immediately. I would have analyzed every word, wondered what it meant, wondered if he'd changed, wondered if there was still something left to save. Instead, I simply deleted it. Not because I hated him, I didn't. Not because I wanted revenge, I didn't. But because I finally understood something important. Closure isn't something another person gives you. It's something you choose. The greatest victory isn't watching someone regret losing you. It's reaching the point where their approval no longer matters. And sitting there with my phone in my hand, smiling at a future that finally belonged to me, I realized I had something far more valuable than an apology. I had my self-respect back, and for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I was worth. Then everything changed. About a week after I left, my phone exploded with notifications. Messages, calls, texts, social media requests. At first I thought something had happened to a family member. Instead, I discovered something far worse had happened to Brandon. Someone had recorded the video call. Nobody knew who. Nobody admitted it. But a recording existed, and somebody shared it. At first it circulated among his friends. Then their spouses heard it. Then co-workers. Then mutual acquaintances. Within days, dozens of people had listened to the conversation. They heard every word. They heard his friends asking why he picked me. They heard the laughter. And most importantly, they heard Brandon agree. There was no context left to argue, no misunderstanding to hide behind, no way to explain it away. People finally heard the truth exactly as I had. The reaction was immediate. Friends started questioning him. Co-workers whispered. Even people who barely knew me were disgusted. The successful, charming man everyone admired suddenly looked very different. People began asking uncomfortable questions. Why propose to someone you described that way? Why stay with her for 4 years? Why let your friends humiliate her? Why didn't you defend the woman you claimed to love? Every answer he gave seemed to make things worse. The harder he tried to explain himself, the guiltier he sounded. Meanwhile, I sat alone in my apartment assembling cheap furniture and trying to rebuild my life. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about what Brandon thought. I wasn't worried about his friends. I wasn't worried about fitting into a world that never wanted me there. For the first time in a very long time, I could breathe. What I didn't know was that Brandon's public humiliation was only the beginning. Because someone else had heard the recording too. And that person was about to reveal a secret Brandon had spent years hiding from me. 4 months later, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Most unknown calls were spam, and I had spent months rebuilding a life I didn't want interrupted. But something made me pick up. Hello? There was a pause. Then I heard his voice. Hannah. For a moment I couldn't speak. I hadn't heard Brandon's voice since the day I left. It sounded different. Not weaker exactly. Smaller. Less certain. The confidence that had always defined him seemed gone. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, he said quietly. I considered hanging up. Instead, I listened. He told me he had started therapy. He said the recording had forced him to confront parts of himself he had ignored for years. He admitted he cared too much about status, too much about appearances, too much about what other people thought. For the first time since I'd known him, he wasn't making excuses. He wasn't blaming his friends. He wasn't blaming alcohol. He was blaming himself. When the call ended, I felt strangely empty, not satisfied, not vindicated, just tired. Then the email started. The first was 3 pages long. The second was even longer. Every message contained apologies, regret, memories, promises. He wrote about our first date, about vacations we'd taken together, about how much he missed me, about how he finally realized I had always been the most genuine person in his life. By noon, I opened my laptop. The wedding was 3 months away. I started canceling everything. The photographer, the venue, the caterer, the florist, the decorations. Every cancellation cost money. Every email felt like a punch to the stomach. By the end of the day, I'd lost nearly $4,700 in deposits. Strangely, it didn't hurt. Compared to spending the rest of my life with a man who secretly looked down on me, it felt cheap. The easiest investment I'd ever made. Then I called our landlord. The lease was entirely in my name. When I explained the situation, he was surprisingly understanding. Within a week, Brandon would need to find somewhere else to live. After that, I began packing. Not everything. Just the things that actually belonged to me. My books, family photographs, my grandmother's jewelry, my laptop, the blanket I'd slept with since college, little pieces of myself I'd slowly buried inside that relationship. As the boxes filled, the apartment started looking unfamiliar, almost empty. Like a movie set after filming ends, a place that only existed because people were pretending. Around midnight, I walked through every room one last time. The silence felt different now, lighter. The engagement ring sat heavily in my hand. For years, one tiny piece of jewelry, one enormous mistake. I placed it carefully on the kitchen counter. Then I grabbed a sheet of paper. At first I wanted to write everything, every insult, every humiliation, every disappointment. Instead, I wrote a single sentence. Now you'll never have to explain to your friends why you chose me. I folded the note and placed it beside the ring. For several minutes I stood there staring at it, waiting to feel regret, waiting to panic, waiting to change my mind. None of it came. I picked up my suitcase, turned off the lights, locked the apartment door behind me, and walked away. No screaming, no dramatic confrontation, no final argument, just silence. What I didn't know was that Brandon would discover my note less than 24 hours later. And when he did, he wasn't the only one who would come looking for me. The first text arrived at 7:12 the next morning. "Where are you?" A minute later, another appeared. "What is this?" Then another. "Call me right now by lunchtime." There were 14 missed calls. By evening there were 32. I ignored every one of them, not because I was trying to punish him, because I already knew exactly what he would say. He would tell me I misunderstood. He would tell me it was a joke. He would tell me his friends were idiots. He would tell me he loved me. And somehow, after 4 years, I finally understood that none of those things mattered anymore. The problem wasn't what his friends thought about me. The problem was what he thought about me. For the first few days, Brandon seemed convinced I would come back. He sent flowers to my office. I refused delivery. He emailed me. I deleted the messages. He contacted my sister. She blocked him. The silence was driving him crazy. Then his tone changed. Suddenly, he wasn't apologizing anymore. He was angry. Mutual friends started calling me. Apparently, Brandon was telling people I had suffered some kind of emotional breakdown. According to him, wedding stress had overwhelmed me. I had become irrational, emotional, unstable. He claimed he was worried about my mental health. The story spread surprisingly fast. Some people believed him, others didn't. I stayed silent. I didn't defend myself. I didn't post explanations online. I simply continued unpacking boxes in my tiny apartment across town. The place was small. The kitchen barely fit a table. The bedroom overlooked a parking lot. The walls were thin. But every night I slept better than I had in years.